Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing the notion of mandatory insurance associated with Thai visas. This is a topic that is, I think it's safe to say it makes a lot of expats squirm, for lack of a better term, and I understand why. I fully understand why. That said, I thought of making this video after reading a recent article from the Pattaya Mail, that's pattayamail.com. Article is titled, New Thai Health Insurance Policy for Foreigners in Border Regions Only. And let me just start off by saying, this doesn't pertain to the same foreigners as most people think it does. And I'll get into this in a minute. Hold on. Quoting directly, press reports that a new registration scheme will help boost access to health care for foreign nationals and the stateless is creating confusion in expat circles. Quoting further, most foreign tourists and expats are not currently required to have comprehensive medical treatment, although the exceptions include some retirees with long-term OA visa issued by a Thai embassy, holders of the new 10-year long-term residence, and expats with work permits who are separately categorized. So again, there are people that already have mandatory insurance associated with their presence here in Thailand. Quoting further, suggestions that Thailand would introduce a 300 baht entry tax on foreign arrivals to cover their medical needs have floundered. The tax still awaits introduction and will be largely used to improve tourist sites and for marketing purposes. A small proportion might be diverted to a compensation fund for foreigners who die in tragic circumstances, such as unforeseen accidents. Yeah, we've discussed the so-called tourist tax many times on this channel. Me personally, I kind of think that whole plan is kind of a bad idea. I get it. It's not illogical, and I can understand why policymakers would think it's a good idea, but the optics on it don't look very good, and there's other ways, quite honestly, of dealing with it. Now, will mandatory insurance become associated with all Thai visas? I don't think it's going to happen in the immediately foreseeable future, but I've said before, and I'll say it again, I think there's always a possibility out there that they do start imposing that, because as we've discussed, associated with when they brought in the mandatory insurance associated with the OA retirement visa, they made it clear that one of the reasons for it was, foreign nationals were taxing the healthcare infrastructure of Thailand, and they were trying to figure out some way to sort of offset that usage. And one of the things that they came up with was mandatory insurance. Now, as discussed in prior videos, not all visas will need to have insurance. In fact, there's certain categories that don't require it. Even within the retirement visa category, there's a differentiation. But do I think it's outside the realm of possibility it could be required on non-immigrants in the future? Possibly. I think it could. That said, again, sort of like with the tourist tax, the optics on it are a little strange. It would also maybe help if they made the process of getting the insurance a little easier, if they sort of built it in. I don't know how you do that, but at the end of the day, you got to remember, if you're trying to facilitate more tourists or, more interest in Thailand, making things a little bit easier is probably better than making things a little bit more difficult. And just sort of adding extra steps doesn't do anything but sort of add consternation and causes some people to just throw up their hands and say, I'm going to go elsewhere. Now, that said, again, you have to balance that against the need to, maintain the healthcare infrastructure. I get all of that. Long story short, the answer to the question in the video, or posed in the title, is it going to immediately happen? No, that does not appear to be the case. Does this specific, if you get into this article, and I urge those who are watching this video, go Pattaya Mail, check that out. What they're even talking about here is primarily migrant workers coming over from border regions. But again, they are foreigners, but they're treated differently because there's sort of a different immigration regime, especially associated with Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar. And for folks coming in from those places to work here in Thailand, there's sort of a different setup for them. So again, even though there is this sort of mandatory healthcare initiative associated with some of those folks, I don't think it's particularly warranted to presume that that's going to bleed over onto sort of all foreigners here in the Kingdom of Thailand.